Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to part 5 of our mini series on how to figure out what you want and, more importantly, how to get it. And today, we're going to connect the dots from the 4 previous lessons. It may have felt like we've taken a meandering route, so let me assure you that every single step has been purposeful. Every question has had a purpose. And it's really necessary and absolutely vital to get a fresh perspective. Our old perspective, our old ways, they are precisely why we don't already know exactly what we want and why we don't already have it. And the best way to change that is to interrupt our habitual patterns. And when we do that, it may feel uncomfortable or weird. Okay, so what if some of these questions have felt weird or even off course? That's evidence that your old patterns of thinking and doing have gotten entrenched. So think of it like driving. You're driving along and you come to a blockage in the road. Now, you can stop and fret and steam and stew, fuss and cuss, or you can stop and you can turn around and go back completely defeated, or you can go around it in some way. You can find a different route, a new route, and you continue, perhaps briefly delayed, just a little detour, but undeterred towards your destination. And that choice, how you handle this blockage in the road, the choice, as always, is yours. But before we tie it all together, let's begin with a recap. Okay. In part 1, we laid the foundation. We did a very simple exercise to help us get in touch with our own willingness. And that's one of the key ingredients to actually getting what you want. We'll be coming full circle to that subject today, the subject of our willingness in today's lesson. And once you know what you are and are not willing to do, you can begin to identify what your own inner barriers have been and maybe still are, and you can address that. A good part of what we are doing here through these 5 lessons is to bring these mysterious inner barriers out into the open, out into the light of day, so to speak. Okay. In part two, we talked about 2 things. First, we talked about what is wanting. I mean, really, what does wanting even mean? We say it all the time, probably 2 dozen times a day, and we say it about all sorts of things. So maybe we need to understand it better. And the second thing we talked about is why. Why do you want the things that you want? I mean, what do they really mean to you? What do you really think will be different for you by having these things? And it's often a big surprise to discover that what we think we want isn't what we're really looking for at all. In fact, it's often a shock to learn that we're looking for a particular feeling and trying to get it through a thing. And of course, that discovery, as wonderful as it is, can contribute to our sense of frustration, and it can mess with our sense of worthiness. Okay, in part 3, we just turned everything upside down, and we looked at our desires from the perspective of the object of those desires. I mean, what does this goal or relationship want from you for itself? That would be almost comical if it were almost tragic how few of us ever think about this. And yet, we want everyone else thinking about what we want and delivering it pronto. Humans are so contrary. Part of being human. The lack of this particular perspective also becomes a big factor in blaming other people and blaming circumstances and insisting that they made this happen or not happen and that they must do something first. I got to tell you something about this they thing. It is guaranteed to interfere with you getting what you want. It is guaranteed to keep you stuck right where you are right now. So unless you like that, got to get over this they thing, okay? In part 4, we got brave. And we looked at whether there's a match or a mismatch between what you want and what this relationship or goal wants from you. Well, there's not a good match yet, or you wouldn't be here. Okay. So today in part 5, we're asking our final and very brave question. We're coming full circle, and here it is. What are you willing to do? Is the key. The full and complete answer is just 2 sentences, just 2. So let's put some context around this first, okay? No matter where you start, no matter what process you use, whether it's this one or something else, at some point, we must each cross the chasm of our own willingness. Any change, any new outcome, any heart's desires, they require our cooperation, our willingness. And I sometimes joke about waving a magic wand or rubbing the lamp and bringing forth the genie. And those are fun. They're fun visuals. But the real magic happens in your own willingness. Your willingness or your lack of willingness is the only thing that's been in your way, your only limitation. It's a self-limitation and always has been. Now, that's really tough for some of us to admit. I might know that from personal experience. but it's not enough. Listen to me carefully, please. It's not enough to say you're willing, even enthusiastically. It's not even enough to believe you are. That's why we did the first 4 parts. And this is part of your frustration. You need to understand where your willingness gap is actually lurking. That's what the first 4 questions were designed to do. So do you know why? Do you know why you haven't been able to find and cross this mysterious gap? Want to know? You've been mistaking your yearnings for willingness. It's easy to do. Your yearnings feel so strong. I mean, you feel them in your body and throughout your whole being. But yearning and willingness, not the same thing. If there's anything you want and don't have, and you've already dug into what you really want and why you want it, and even what it wants from you, and you're feeling all of this so strongly, the only missing ingredient is your willingness. And make no mistake, your willingness is the most powerful ingredient you bring to this work. Because doing this work, you have to be willing to go places you've dreaded going. They're not really that scary. You've made them scary. But you have to be willing to go where you haven't gone before and do what you haven't done before. Okay? And you can be brilliant. You can be talented. You can be in love with your desired outcome, this life you want to design for yourself. You can even identify your gaps. And none of it matters without your willingness. So think about this. Okay? Happy, successful people, they all have one thing in common. Guess what it is? They're willing to do whatever it takes, 10,000 times or as many times as necessary. And if something doesn't work out, and they know they're on track with their own heart's desires, and they're willing to try something else. They know they're on track. Something hasn't worked out yet. They are willing to try something else, and something else, and something else. No excuses and no blame. But some do it so gracefully. It seems so easy for them that we get fooled into thinking that they must be special, or there must be something wrong with us. They're not. And there's nothing wrong with any of us, not even you. You are not an exception. So remember this. Ready? Ready? If someone else can do it, then anyone, if anyone else can do it, whatever it is, okay, if someone else can do it, that means it is within the realm of human possibility. So here's a dirty little secret. The angrier and the more defensive you get in explaining and justifying just why it simply is not possible for you, no matter what she says, the more it's obvious that some underlying and perhaps invisible unwillingness has been going on. It's been getting in your way. Chances are you know what it is. You don't want to go there, or you haven't wanted to go there. And you see, this person that you've noticed getting what you want had already been willingly learning and falling down and practicing and failing and getting up and doing it all again and again and again and again. She has been willing to tune within. Understanding at some level, even if she doesn't realize it, that everything starts here. And she's been willing to grow and change herself instead of expecting other people to change, her circumstances to change, the world around her, everything and everyone else to do all the changing. And she's been willing to look beyond any story she's been telling herself. The ones justifying and explaining why she wasn't yet living this particular desire. And she is beginning to write herself a new story, step by baby step, word by new word, action by fresh action. And here's the kicker. The facts of her life didn't change. Her experiences and her relationships didn't change. They didn't need to. They didn't need to. What changed is her own understanding and perspective and the actions that she's willing to take. What changed is the story she's been telling herself about what all those experiences and relationships had meant. She's not, or perhaps no longer, willing to say to herself, I can't because of, insert circumstances or relationships. Or, she's also not willing to say, I've never been able to because, and again, insert any old circumstance or relationship. Instead of looking out there for some other answer, some magic pill or potion, she has been willing to look within, to find her own inner barriers. She's been willing to see her inner barriers for what they really are, her gaps. And she's been willing to address them directly and lovingly. How swiftly that happens is up to her, up to you, up to me. And she's addressing them willingly, listen up, because she knows her inner barriers, whatever they are, they originally served a very vital purpose, and she wants them to know she appreciates what they've done, while also making it very clear that their services are no longer needed. So here's today's actual lesson. Here's your 2 sentences I promised you at the beginning. Ready? Okay, so once you've identified your gaps, you have 2 options for closing them. You can shrink your desires to match where you are right now and let that be where you really want to be. Or you can grow yourself into the version of you that matches what you really want. That's it. 2 sentences, 2 options. There is not a third option. Change your goals or change yourself. And there's also no wrong answer. And sometimes your very best answer is a little bit of both. Let me tell you a little story. In fact, Glennon Doyle tells this story in her book, Untamed. It's about how she stumbled onto this truth. Okay? Fun story. So as a kid, she dreamed of being a rock star. And she said she would stand in front of her mirror and she'd pretend to sing into her hairbrush. dancing around and pretending, imagining herself to be Madonna. But then as an adult, she finally decided to take guitar lessons. But here's where her story just exploded. This potentiality just ran away with her. So she's telling her wife the story. She says, and I'm going to learn to play guitar, and I'm going to write songs, and we're going to go to parties, and people will gather around and they'll sing along, and oh, people will be so inspired. Well, not because I'm a great singer or guitarist, but because if I can do this, then they can do whatever they want. Ta-da! And her wife Abby was happy for her and supportive. And then they had this very eye-opening conversation. Abby said, "Oh, wait. Did you say we were going to start going to parties?" And Glendon said, no. Oops. You see, either choice, whether you choose to shrink or grow, it's going to require you to explore your own inner desires and your willingness to become found by the matching version of you, the one who wants to grow like this, but maybe not like that, the one who desires to stay, or the one who desires to go, or maybe it's a little bit of both. And so only you can decide, only you, each of us for ourselves. What are you willing to do or not do? What are you willing to change or not change? Where are you willing to grow or not grow? And only you, here's your last jewel for today, only you can decide if you're ready. This dream it's already ready. It's just, very patiently waiting for you. But only you can decide. And here, let's be very, very, very clear. Being ready is a choice. It is not a circumstance. Do you hear me? Being ready is a choice, not a circumstance. Waiting until you feel 100% ready, that's just a dead end. It's an excuse to stay in your comfort zone. And that's fine. That's fine as long as you understand what you're doing, what choice you're making, and that you are making a choice. Waiting until you feel 100% ready, it could be going back to that wishful thinking of, doing the same thing and hoping it will someday lead to the breakthrough that you crave. Now, lots of people, they argue on behalf of their comfort zone without realizing that those comfort zones can also be self-limitations. They can be prisons of your own making. But that's not you, not anymore. You've joined the women, the wonderful women who are determined to understand what they really want and why they want it, who are willing to write their own life story, who are defining what comes next on their own terms, who are choosing to lean out of their comfort zone and into what's possible. So if you only take one thing away from today, I want you to know that you can decide and you can define what comes next on your own terms, lovingly, honorably, unselfishly, if you are willing. Bye for now.